Hey everyone, it's Warren. Welcome to my channel. Today's video, I'm going to be talking about my top 10 fantasy books that are on my list that I need to read. Also, just going to preface this video that I don't know what every single one of these books is about, so if I don't really give a synopsis on it, or if I don't give a good synopsis on it, I'm sorry. It's just because I don't really know much about the book. Also, I have mixed these books up, so I have a combination of adult fantasy, new adult fantasy, and young adult fantasy. The first book I have here is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. This is an Asian fantasy about a girl named Rin who is selected to train in this top elite military academy, and while she's there, she's having a really hard time. People are not liking her because she comes from, I think, like a really poor side of the country, and she looks different than everybody, so they are not very welcoming to her. As she's training, she finds out that she has magical shamanistic powers, and she has to try and cope with how to hide those powers, how to control them, and finds herself in the middle of a great political drama. So apparently they've been fighting, and there was this first Poppy War, and they're on the verge of having a second one. This sounds so interesting, and I have seen this book around a few places. People have been really liking it so far. It's been getting good reviews. I really like the cover of this book. I love the drawing of Rin, I guess, and the smoke that kind of mists up to the top that forms the title. I think that's really cool, and just the white background. It's a very aesthetically pleasing book. Here is the spine. I always like to show off books when I talk about them. I don't like to just talk about the plot. I think there's a lot that goes into my experience of enjoying books, including, you know, the covers. I am really excited to pick this book up because I've been hearing really good things about it. If you guys would like me to do a review on this book, please let me know down in the comments. Another book that I really need to pick up is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. This is about a man named Kavoth, and I don't really know like what he does. I just know he has a very ranger-esque kind of assassin feel to him. It just says, "I have stolen princesses back from sleeping barrow kings. I burned down the town of Traben. I've spent the night with Florian and left with both my sanity and my life. I was expelled from university at a young age, then most people are let in. I tread paths by moonlight that others fear to speak of during day. I have talked to the gods, loved women, written songs that make the minstrels weep. You may have heard of me. My name is Kavoth." And then it just goes on to say, "So begins a tale of fantasy literature." So it doesn't really give a synopsis, so I really have absolutely no idea what happens in this book or what this book is even about. And everyone that I know has picked up this book has loved it and said the magic system is really, really good in this story, so I'm excited to read it. The next series I want to pick up is the Great Library series by Rachel Kane. This is the first book, Ink and Bone, and then I also have the second one, Paper and Fire. And these two books take place in a world where personal ownership of books is strictly forbidden. So there is obviously a great library where you can go and read all the knowledge of the world, but you are not allowed to own a book. That is completely outlawed. There is an alchemy magic system in this book, and our main character, Jess, is someone who has secretly been hoarding books, and most of his knowledge and his family history has to do with hiding books that are technically outlawed. I think this is a YA story, but it sounds so interesting and unique, and I like the idea of having a magic system that works through alchemy instead of just regular magic. Regular is even really a term to use, just a relative term, I guess. Another series that I really want to get to and I have not picked up yet, and I've mentioned it a couple times on my channel already, is the Ember in the Ashes series by Sabatier. This is the first book, Ember in the Ashes, and I also own the second one, Torch Against the Night. This series, I think, takes place in a very imperialistic Roman-style fantasy world, and our main character here is Leia, or Leia, I'm not really sure how to say her name. I think it's Leia, and in order for Leia to save her family and protect them, she has to work with the rebels that are trying to usurp the Empire. I feel like I'm talking about Star Wars, and I believe there's also some sort of contest that takes place in this book as well that she has to compete in, so I hope that I can get to these soon. The next fantasy series, which is actually a duology, wonder if you guys can guess what it is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I've had this book for a long time and have not picked it up yet. I don't really know what this book is about, to be honest. I know that it's part of the Grishaverse, I think, and it's like a heist story. I recognize two characters, Kaz and Inej. I like know their names, but I don't really know much else about this book other than it takes place in this fantasy version of Amsterdam, and I think there's some magic involved, but I don't know. I just know that it ties into the Grisha series, which also I haven't read yet. There's a lot of books I haven't read. Maybe I should put that one on the list too. I've heard so many good things about this book. This duology has been all the hype for the past couple of years. I've seen so many people on the Bookstagram community and the Booktube community talking about this duology. Apparently it has quite a cast of characters, so it creates a fandom because there's like more than one character. There's multiple viewpoints. It has sparked fandom boxes, incorrect Twitter accounts, that's like a thing now. All sorts of crazy crazy fandom shenanigans like most YA books do that are super popular. And I don't really know much else about this book. I'm sorry I'm rambling about it. I really want to pick this up so that I can finally understand what is all the hype about and why everyone loves it so much, and I hope that I will love it too. This has been a lot of people's like #1 favorite series, #1 favorite book duology of all time. So if it's that good, I would really like to pick this up. A lot of people say that Leigh Bardugo's Grisha trilogy was sort of the beginning of her work where she was still growing as an author, and that this book and the sequel, Crooked Kingdom, are like her masterpiece. So that was like the beginning, her kind of origin, and this book is insanely good. I haven't read anything really by Leigh Bardugo other than Wonder Woman Warbringer. I don't really think I have an accurate feel for like her writing style and what kind of fantasy she writes, but I do know that this book has just been everywhere and everyone wants to read it, and I want to read it because it's got crows. Everyone's super hyped about it. I want to not feel excluded from the cool kids. I almost feel ashamed for not reading this series yet, just because it's been so popular and so many people have read it, but I also try not to judge people who have not read big series like Throne of Glass or Harry Potter, because I'm always excited when new readers find a story that I really enjoy and fall in love with it too, so hopefully most people will afford me the same mercy, but I do feel kind of bad for not reading the series sooner. Another series that I have mentioned in previous videos and have talked about not too much on my channel, but like enough that you guys kind of know that I've been interested in it, and that is the Shades of Magic trilogy by V.E. Schwab. I just want to get into all of V.E. Schwab's books, including Vicious as well, so hopefully you don't mind if I just count all of these together. These have also been book series that have just sparked so many passionate fans and fandom conversations. I do know about the Darker Shade of Magic series. I've heard this explanation like plenty of times on BookTube. It follows this guy named Kel, and there's all these different Londons that have magic, and some don't have magic, and some are just mundane like our London, and then there's others that are really dark and mysterious. This character just jumps through all these realms to the different Londons, and this is like an epic fantasy adventure across magical realms, and there's some sinister plots involved. Perfect for the fall and autumn time. This is also another adult fantasy book. The past few I've been talking about have been YA, but this is an adult series. V.E. Schwab is like one of the most popular authors right now because she's writing, I guess, what you would call new adult. So they're about actual adults, not teenagers, but real adults, but they're young like me and probably most of you watching this. In Vicious, I know that this series, two main characters are like college students, and so this book is about, I think is like a villain origin story is what I've heard about it, but it's about these two college students that are doing some supernatural near-death experiments, and they end up developing supernatural like magical powers, and I think they don't get along after that, or something changes. There's like a time jump and it's been a couple years and now they aren't really getting along, but I think I've heard from a lot of people that this has a lot of villainy in it, like it's just a villain origin story. I am so excited to read this book. I've wanted to pick this up for a while because Vengeville is coming out and everyone is so excited for that, but I really like that this is a cool magical story about college students, because as I've said before, I just don't really come across a lot of books in the new adult and young adult genres that really have anything to do with college age readers, and that's something I would love to see represented more in literature nowadays. This book also feels surprisingly short, so it seems like a fast read, and I hope I can pick it up soon. The next fantasy series I'd really like to read is The Traitor's Kiss by Erin Beatty. I've heard almost nothing about this series at all. It's about a girl named Sage who has just failed to be a proper lady. She doesn't want to get married. She doesn't want to follow typical societal standards. So she is basically sent off to be the apprentice of a matchmaker and help other women get married for political alliances. So she gets a lot of the inside scoop on what's going on in the political world, and there seems to be a lot of political intrigue. And she gets recruited by a soldier who wants her to spy on the enemy ranks of the neighboring lands. This sounds really cool, and I actually met the author at a book convention that happened last year in my city, and she signed the book out to me, so that was really nice of her, and I feel bad that I haven't read it yet. The back of it says, "People will die, Sage. I know. I'm not afraid." It sounds super badass. I love a good political fantasy. It's always cool to have magical, supernatural conflicts, but I think a good political fantasy is always so refreshing and cool to read about. And I guess on the topic of political fantasies, I'm also really looking forward to picking up The Winter's Curse by Marie Rutotsky. I've heard that this is a really unique fantasy series. This is about a girl named Kestrel who is the daughter of a general, and her kingdom conquers other lands and takes the people of those lands as slaves. And one day, Kestrel sees a slave being put up for auction, and she decides to buy him so that she can set him free, and that kind of breaks the social norms because people don't really buy slaves to free them, obviously. The slave that she frees, his name is Aaron, and he, I think, becomes a potential love interest, and then there's some secrets involved, and it has a lot of like meta-political social aspects to it, and that's what makes it really interesting. I don't think there's magic involved, so it is just pure intrigue. The next fantasy book that I really want to pick up is the first in a rumored duology, and that is Onyx and Ivory by Mindy Arnett. I haven't seen very many people talk about this book, but I have been hearing good things. It follows Kate, who I think is 19 years old, which is surprising for a YA novel, but a welcome one nonetheless. And in this world, some magic is outlawed, but other magic is legal and okay to use, and Kate is a wilder, which means that she has magic that allows her to communicate with animals, and that is a type of magic that is outlawed. Everyone in this world lives in protected cities and territories, because if you go out after dark, you will be attacked by these wingless dragons called night drakes. There is a dark mystery behind these night drakes and why they have shown up, and it is up to Kate and Prince Corwin to figure it out. I think this is rumored to be the first book in a duology, which I thought it was actually a standalone given the sheer size of it. This is a pretty thick book. It has over 500 pages, but the title and the synopsis have really caught my interest, so I'm excited to pick this book up, and hopefully it's good. I will let you guys know my thoughts. And the final book on this list is Furyborn by Claire Legrand. This is the first book in the Imperium trilogy. The cover is just gorgeous, and the plot synopsis sounded so interesting and unique, and it immediately made me want to pick it up. Furyborn is a young adult fantasy about two different women that are set in two different time periods that are 1,000 years apart from each other. We have Rael and her storyline, and then 1,000 years later we have Ilana and her storyline, and the two of them sort of connect, and one of them affects the other because of the time difference. Both of these women are believed to be prophesied queens with magical powers. There's the Sun Queen and the Blood Queen. Rael is the Sun Queen, and when she finds out she has magical powers, she has to go through these trials and tests, and if she fails the test, then she will be killed, so she has to pass the test and try to survive and become the queen. Then Ilana is the Blood Queen. She doesn't give a shit about the kingdom. She doesn't care. She's just trying to keep her family alive, and then she ends up joining this rebel on a mission to find out the secret of this queen and everything. And both of these queens, while separated by a millennia, still affect each other, and what one does translates into the life of the other one. There's some connection there that I think is magical, and the author just announced the sequel is coming out. The story sounds so unique and interesting, and I'm really excited to dive into it. This book sounds amazing, and I really want to get to it soon. Those are all the fantasy books that I would really like to get to very soon, because they are some of the most hyped series in recent time. If you'd like to know my thoughts on any of the books that I mentioned in this video once I've read them, then let me know down in the comments below if you want to see a book review for them. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video really soon. Bye!